Welcome to Access, thanks to Crypto.com. Matthew Lloyd and Damian Barrett with you, coming out of a round of footy where the big boys were kicking big bags of goals, which would have delighted you, Lordo.
It certainly did, Damo. Some superstars at the top of their game, and I can't wait this morning to chat about a number of areas. A couple of teams with big concerns. That's Melbourne, another damning loss yesterday. The Brisbane Lions, can they recover? But I love the response of the Hawks there in Tasmania.
Yep. Lordo, there's a guy who's played 35 games of footy. His name is Sam Darcy. He may be the rarest player we have ever seen. Now, you are still sitting 8th on the all-time goal-kicking list with 926 goals. He's only got 58. I want you, though, to take us through and pull apart his game and why you think he is unstoppable.
Damo, he's very, very different to anything I've ever seen. I can't liken him to anybody. I know you spoke about Paul Salmon potentially earlier in the year, but let's take a look at what makes him so special and why we're so excited about him. And it's marking at the highest point. So he moves so much. So he's not a player who's saying, stand and deliver, kick it on my head because I'm tall.
How do you stop that?
He moves so much where then he comes back at the ball and he reads it so well. So you see these guys like Darcy Moore who are giving away, 10, 15 centimetres. And
Darcy Moore's a big man himself.
He is a big man. And then it's this reach that they've got. Look how they're not even getting to his shoulder height. And that's what's making him so unstoppable. Poor Caminiti on the weekend, it was the same. Look at that. You cannot stop that. And that's what's making him, arguably the best forward in the game by the end of this season.
In round 14, he returned after 8 weeks off with a serious knee injury, Lordo. He's now got 58 goals to his name in totality. You've just highlighted the marking at the highest point. But for a guy who's 209 centimetres, he's just as good on the ground.
He is below his knees. So that's the thing about him that is so striking, why he's capturing the whole competition. And we love seeing him back on the weekend against St Kilda because he just reminded everyone of just how good he is off the back of that injury. And it's because when you're this height, you shouldn't be this good below your knees. And that's what he is. And he's elite by hand and feet.
He's got the footy brain too, as we're watching this, yeah. And the both feet element to his game too. He'll take a set shot goal, and if he's got some time with the ball, he'll use his right foot. But his left might actually arguably be more effective.
Yeah, I don't think the comp knew it existed until early on. So that's his preferred right foot. And then we saw him against Collingwood earlier in the season do some things like this where we go, wow, I was sitting in the box at the MCG going, I did not know this existed.
That's Bontempelli-like.
It is as good
on his preferred left. Yeah.
And that's what opens him up. So again,
and look at the weighting of this kick.
As a defender, do I go to his left? Do I go to his right? They don't really know how to play him in that situation either.
And there's another element to his game, which I know you do like to because you like to play this way yourself. There's an aggression to him.
It is. And that's where a lot of young forwards don't have that till maybe 5, 6, 7 years into their career.
This was year 2.
This was year 2, and it's Braden Maynard.
And while it's not a nice scene to look for Collingwood players, but he was prepared to do that. And while he missed matches, and rightly so for that, Lordo, I think he made a statement early in his career, don't mess with me. I'm not this big gangly 209 centimetre player who can be messed with.
And that's where opposition midfielders might think to themselves, or defenders who are trying to get in front of him, wow, he's coming, and he's coming like a...
So that's a warning sign?
It is. It's just an excitement. We're excited. You and I both love him as much as each other. So what we're going to see for the rest of this season and the next 15 years.
And the smile on your face is broad today because we're going to go from Sam Darcy to Mitch Georgiades, Lordo, who kicked 7 goals yesterday for Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval against the Melbourne Footy Club. And this was his best game of a career that has already had, unfortunately for him, a knee reconstruction.
Yeah, where they got it wrong is he is so explosive. So his first 5 metres is as good as anyone's as a key forward, and they just didn't get enough touch on Georgiades. So well done to him. He kicked 7 goals for. He kept losing him out the back and then coming back at the ball. So they started Turner on him. Turner wasn't up.
Why would they do that?
I'm not sure why you had Lever and May in your team that you'd start Turner. It should have been May from the start. His confidence was up. May was no answer for him either. So full credit to him, a career best game for Georgiades.
And that was down the forward line, and up the back line, Asava Radaglia had one of his very good games of footy too, now that he's at his second club. And he needed to step up yesterday because Aliir was hurt and eventually taken off the ground.
A career best game for him, so the bookends at either end dominating Melbourne. And so we'll touch on Radaglia first. Well done to him because he's had his knockers and a lot of doubts on him. He got traded away and a lot of people thought he just wasn't a smart enough footballer at Geelong, and that's why they traded him to Port Adelaide. But how poor was Melbourne's ball use again? And Simon Goodwin after the game spoke about it. Unfortunately, our entries weren't good enough, but how many times have we heard that from Melbourne over the years?
Well, just nothing changes under this coaching of Simon Goodwin. Yet again, Lordo, they lost a game of footy through poor kicking. There are other reasons for it, but on 9 of 14 occasions this season, they've kicked more behinds than goals. They lost an entire final series in 2023 when they kicked 7-11 and then 9-17 respectively against Collingwood and Carlton. I raise that because this is now a 3-year-old story that they are losing matches on the back of bad kicking. Forget inside 50s, forget contest, forget clearance. It doesn't matter. They just don't kick goals when they should.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure they'd be getting... the board should be challenging the footy department of why nothing changes. We saw a little response a month ago, but the last 3 weeks have been pretty poor.
Yep.
Damo, in Tasmania, I saw something a little bit different from the Adelaide Crows. They lost the game, but I saw 2 big wingers. So I remember Nick Cox burst on the scene. We thought, could this be a change in wingers? But
Mark Blitzarves at times.
Mark Blitzarves, yeah, and Dan Curtin. So he's playing wing now because the 4 big forwards can't work. And he pushed Harry Morrison deep and took it. We see Dempsey pushes forward better than anyone at Geelong, but he's not that big. But that's coming out on D'Ambrosio. So that was the first 2 goals of the game in Tasmania where Adelaide are a big, big team, and I think it's a weapon for them pushing into the final series.
And to your point, as we look at this and celebrate that, because that's going to be something that gets them into the high-end games and gets results eventually. They only kicked 3 more goals for the rest of the game. They lost the game in a soccer-like scoreline of 5-6. But the change in-game and on the run by Sam Mitchell is something that you love.
I was really impressed with the coaching of Sam Mitchell. He's a brave coach, and he made some serious moves here in the second half. So he subbed out Huswaite at half-time. He said, OK, you're out of the game. He brought in Jath off halfback who provided run. Wizard Watson started in that centre clearance. He also brought Dylan Moore up to the midfield. He changed the role of Carl Amon, and Marbiol Chol was playing poor football, was getting outmarked. He started playing like a man as well. Connor McDonald had a big... this is the pressure. The pressure ramped up. They were getting smashed at the contest, smashed at clearances. So it was attitudinal and the coach's moves which got him back in the game.
He hasn't been coaching as long as Chris Scott, Lloyd, but in your eyes, is he the most like Chris Scott in his preparedness to change on the run? And as I ask you that, let's take a look at the numbers that they did produce in the second half, which dramatically turned this game around. Every key metric there between the first 2 quarters and quarters 3 and 4 changed dramatically from Mitchell being prepared to make a personnel change with the subbing he made, but also the attitudinal change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what a good coach can do. They're right behind him. They understand what he wants. And I could see it. I could see it just on half-time when he had the laptop out. He wasn't even watching the game. He was studying and looking at what was going wrong. He made the moves accordingly, and they got the crucial 4 points to give him that top 4 chance now. Now,
he's getting a lot out of a guy who's at the latter end of his career, Jack Gunston. He's covering for a lot of problems in the forward line, Lord. I say that because Kel Shadier's only played the 1 minor game this year. And as we see what he did on this particular game, in fact, he probably set the game up officially when he handballed late to Newcombe in the last quarter to win it. But prior to that, he was already allowing them to win this game of footy. Here's the one I'm referring to here. Clean hands with a wet ball across to Newcombe, and that was the match-sealing goal of the game. And he had a good role, and he's had a good season, Lordo, with where he's at. I mean, his numbers are stacking up against those guys leading the Coleman medal. Now, he hasn't kicked as many goals as them, but when you factor in scores plus assists, there's only one person more damaging him in him this year in Jesse Hogan.
Yeah, they would be lost without him, and I'll put my hand up. I thought he's been finished a number of times, but he is playing as well as any forward at Hawthorn. So Charles having his good moments, but he's the most consistent forward at Hawthorn. No Deer, no Mitch Lewis. So you can't really rely on those guys now because they've missed half a season. So Gunston, he's holding up so well. Just so smart. Reads the play really well, and he hasn't got the pace he once had, but he's smart. It's getting him around.
And clean ball use.
Yeah.
Lordo, the Brisbane Lions, even before last year's grand final win, knew that they were going to have to play 2025 without their star forward, Joe Danaher, but they're now going to play the remainder of 2025 without Jack Payne after this left knee injury. It's patella damage, and they have now ruled him out, unfortunately, for the remainder of the year. And it exposed them, obviously, within this game itself, because Aaron Cadman then went on to have his best game of a short AFL career, game number 49. Aaron Cadman kicked 5 goals and took 13 marks, and Jesse Hogan, the brilliant Coleman medalist winner of last year, kicked 6. It's a problem for that man on screen, Chris Fagan, now.
Yeah, Chris Fagan spoke after the game and said Payne's in career best form, and we've now lost him. So you can't replace guys like that, Payne. So Darcy Gardner, people talk about Tom Doedee, but they've hardly played at AFL level throughout the year, so it's not a like for like. And unbelievable from Cadman. 3 of the great marks you'll ever likely to see from him. Breakout game, we love seeing it. But yeah, real concerns now for the Brisbane Lions.
We can see both Andrews and Hipwood on screen there. Hipwood being the stopgap measure. They've got Gardner and Duday in the wings, and it's why you need to recruit players like Duday, albeit with a third knee reconstruction that he's dealing with, but Gardner being the sort of journeyman that you need in these moments to get through the rest of the year.
Brisbane laid 28 tackles, so they've got more issues than just Jack Payne going out of the side. So, yeah, they've got to ramp up their pressure and hunger.
Yep. The Lions, Lordo, are you worried yet? I'm not. I feel they're just, I suppose, dealing with being the reigning premier. But it is a worry since the round 9 game against North Melbourne, where they were fortunate in the end to draw that game. Melbourne got them the week after. They were really good against Hawthorn, it must be said. But the win against Essendon doesn't count in the big picture perspective because of the lack of, I suppose, class of the Bombers. And then they've lost their last 2 on the back of bad kicking and now injury to Jack Payne.
What I love is it's pretty much the team from now. Like Brisbane this time last year, I think they only lost a couple of games from this point on.
Yeah.
So teams hit their straps right now. They do. And so we'll look back in, 10, 12 weeks' time, and the Premier will have lost 1 or 2 games from here. So they've still got time to turn it around.
Giants have had flat patches, and we've spoken about that on this particular show, but they've also now beaten the top 3 teams on the ladder: Collingwood, Brisbane Lions and Geelong.
Yeah, and I just wonder if Finn Callaghan is the man that is a key to them with the way he played in this game on the weekend. So he takes them forward, and I think when you get 11 goals between Cadman and Hogan, it's probably because his ball use was just made it far easier for them.
Look, there are 7 very, very dangerous footballers who occupy the spaces of the Geelong forward line. Take us through the dynamic and how it's working now that Jeremy Cameron is kicking regular bags of goals. Shannon Neal stepping up to do so. Paddy Dangerfield coming back in with a slightly different role to what he had at the start of the year. Then you've got guys like Close and Myers and Manor and Stengel and Dempsey, who plays on a wing but runs forward regularly.
Well, everyone you just mentioned there is a class player. Some are champions, some of the greats of the game, Hall of Famers, and then you've got players who are so important, like Close, Myers and Stengel are just so important to the mix. That man there, Shannon Neal, he's as confident as he's ever been in his AFL career. So normally there's someone you can lay off and drop off, but there's no one at Geelong you can do it. And they have a connection and a cohesion amongst them that is as good as any forward line in the competition.
And a player on the Geelong team is the subject of this week's Crypto.com bold call. It's your call this week, Lordo, and what have you got?
I'd been hard on him in the past that I thought he wasn't physical enough and tough enough, but now I would pick him in the best 5.
Talking about Max Holmes.
Max Holmes. My bold call is, if I was picking from the 800 players in the competition and I could pick my starting 4 or 5 midfield, he would be in it. So I think it's because of every disposal counts. There's a lot of junk disposals in our game where guys rack them up, but so
he's in the guts
for
the first bounce.
He takes you forward, he runs, he carries, his disposal has got better and better. He's an inside player, he's an outside player. So
you've got Gawn rucking.
I've got Gawn rucking.
Himruck roving.
I'd have
Bontempelli
and Dacos.
Yeah.
And there's some stiff ones. I love what Dawson's doing and Noah Anderson, but I'd have Holmes above them now.
Yep. Lotto, on this show each week, we like to have a look at some learnings out of the particular round just played. What have you got?
My first one is for the AFL. The bye rounds must change. I think it's cold, we're in winter, we're in the middle of the year, and yet we're just having a lot of flat games because we've got so many teams resting. We should be able to do it over 2 weeks. Players have too much power. Let's shorten the bye period.
I agree with you.
Second is the Bombers. Must bring the heat this week. So, yes, you're undermanned, but bring passion, bring aggression, and bring some fight to the Fremantle Dockers on Thursday night. And on the Dockers, Brayshaw and Sarong, the best 1-2 punch in leadership. They are brilliant and wonderful representatives of their club.
Yeah. Lotto, St Kilda, we spoke before about Sam Darcy and their loss, the Saints' loss. They've lost 7 of 9. I'm not sure where they are within this season. I'm not sure where they are in the bigger picture of their supposed rebuild. North Melbourne, they were good against the Dockers. I don't often say that in a loss. It was another nice loss, but they were good, I thought. But they have to beat Carlton this week with the problems that Carlton has got. And again, the Blues, they're lucky and fortunate to have played the Eagles twice to round 14 to give them their scoreline.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks they've started like a house on fire and then it's just stopped to a walk, so they just cannot play 4 quarters of Blues.
And speaking of the Eagles, their coach, Andrew McQualter, is the coach speak subject today.
Andrew, what was the gist of your quarter-time message?
We were pathetic in the contest.
Do you want them to, what else did you have to say? Did you give them a bit of a bake? Did you try to implement a bit of composure amongst the boys?
Yeah, simply we've got to bounce back from that. So we've got an idea around the method they've got around the ball, and we're just collapsing on it and we're not getting it done with the ball in our hands. So we've got to improve in that space.
Love that, Lordo. It's strong stuff. You don't often hear a coach in-game mention a word as damning as pathetic.
Yeah, we think the last time was Malcolm Blight back in the day where he named a player as well at that time. But I think that first quarter, they'll be cringing, those West Coast Eagles players. They pretty much were walked around and stepped around, and they could have stopped so many of them, but it was pathetic. They were soft, and they got what they deserved in that first quarter.
They've only had the one win of the year, and their narrative around the club has been largely revolving around their captain, their co-captain, Oscar Allen, exploring other options. And he may now, Lordo, as we talked this morning on Access for Crypto.com, may have played his last game for West Coast. I say that because he went down late with this injury off the ball, officially diagnosed by the club last night post-match as a plantaris injury. It's a lower leg injury. I'll let the club diagnose it formally and officially this week, ranging in recovery times from a few weeks to 8 weeks to potentially half a season if it's at the extreme level or extreme end of what damage he's done there. So more problems for him, and he's been in the doldrums all year since it was publicly exposed that he'd met with Sam Mitchell.
He's had you look at him, he's got his knee bandaged, he's got his shoulder bandage, he's now got the new plantaris injury, so he's just got to end his season and start a pre-season as soon as he possibly can, because he's
for another club, Brisbane Lions,
or whoever he's going to play for, start afresh and get a good pre-season in, because he just is not the player he used to be. I love Oscar Allen, but I think his currency has dropped with every game that he's played this year. Only
the 7 matches in round 14, given 4 clubs had a bye. Lordo on the Crypto.com tipping channel leaderboard. I see you've moved up to 82, but Fish is still miles out in front of you, and even worse for me, even though I got 6 out of the 7 results this week. So Fish, Michael Whiting leading the way for AFL.com.au and AFL Live app. Thanks for watching Access for Crypto.com. We'll be back next Monday.